The Cognitive Engineer, Part 1: How Intelligent People Build Intelligent Prisons. Most people are running on mental software they never consciously installed. They operate from beliefs, assumptions, and frameworks that were programmed into them by family, culture, education, and circumstances. Yet they experience these inherited mental patterns as absolute truth. I call it living in someone else's operating system. The tragedy is that most high performers, despite their analytical sophistication, remain completely unconscious of the arbitrary nature of their core beliefs about success, career, identity, and life itself. Um, I had clients with exceptional analytical capability and trapped in mental framework that was systematically undermining their performance and well-being. And despite knowing intellectually that their beliefs were arbitrary, they remained emotionally enslaved to them. That's a paradox that I encounter repeatedly in my coaching practice, the gap between intellectual awareness and experiential liberation. Just this week, we had a session with a brilliant strategy consultant, and I witnessed a perfect example of this dynamic. He could clearly articulate that his beliefs about career progression, timelines, and success were just thoughts. Yet, the same beliefs controlled every major decision in his life. And he was imprisoned by ideas he himself recognized as arbitrary. So, today I want to talk about a complete methodology that I've developed over years of working with elite operators, executives, high performers who possess extraordinary analytical capability but still remain trapped in inherited mental frameworks. I operate as cognitive engineer, partially debugger, part systems architect, and partially demolition expert for the mind. My methodology operates at four distinct levels: surfacing invisible code of the mind, pressure testing mental models and mental constructs, installing new operating systems, and then integrating through embodiment. But before we dive into the technical process, we just need to understand the fundamental mechanism by which mental imprisonment occurs. So let's talk about the installation mechanism, how beliefs become code. Limiting beliefs get installed through repetition in emotionally charged contexts. And it's not necessarily intelligence that creates them, it is identification with those beliefs. So people absorb different kind of beliefs like success take time, or I need to prove my worth, or there are levels in life that I need to progress through. What's actually happening is that their nervous system is prioritizing safety over truth. The brain says, if I believe this, I will belong to the group. Or if I question this, I might be ostracized and isolated. So even high performers, even people who run $1 million companies, they're still unconsciously optimizing for acceptance, not freedom. The mechanism is simple: repetition, emotional charge, and authority figure. Repetition, the same thought repeated many, many times becomes a belief. Emotional charge is the emotional state that's being created by that belief. An authority figure is the voice, a voice of a parent, teacher, someone who we respect. That's the installation code. So, for example, when the moment a child feels powerless, but someone is older, more confident, tells them, hey, this is just how the world works, the belief doesn't pass through a mechanism of logical, critical thinking. It installs directly into the subconsciousness as a rule. And then all this set of rules, they run silently in the background. The person can be 25, 35, 45, 50, articulate, analytical, self-aware, but they're still living in this 7-year-old fear of rejection or failure. So let's look at different installation channels, for example. Layer 1 is the parental operating system. We learn from the external world, and this is how we understand who we are. First, we start noticing difference at the physical level. Our bodies are different. Someone's shorter, someone's taller, someone's wider, someone's thinner, someone's skin is darker, someone's lighter. And we understand our differences through these visible distinctions. So this is how ego starts constructing. We associate ourselves with certain shape and form. And then we start to combine our picture of the world through this code. So the primary code is installed through our own ability to observe the world. And of course, who are the first people we observe? It's our parents. We observe what they do, not necessarily what they think or what believe, but their actions, what kind of mental models they have. And we don't necessarily understand how they think, but we understand how they behave. What's their energy? What's their response? How they approach things. And then when we grow up a little bit older, we start listening to them. That's the first authority figure, the voice of a parent in our head, telling us that something is right, something is wrong, something is correct, and something is incorrect. And we associate some actions with pain because we get punished when we get something incorrect. And we associate some actions with pleasure because we get rewarded either by words of affirmation or by actual rewards for something that if we've done good. So that creates this foundational reward and punishment circuitry in our minds, in our brain, that will govern decisions making for decades. Layer 2, that's the institutional brainwashing system. We go into the schooling system. That's a huge layer of brainwashing for us because that's the system that creates the same reinforcing mechanism of grading and ranking and leveling. That's where we learn this from. We study the same subjects and we get different grades depending on our aptitude. And we're supposed to do well in all different subjects, regardless of our natural gifts and aptitudes. Traditional school is actually not adapted to at all to human nature. And I understand because it's education at scale. So it's different kind of conversation how we solve this problem. But technology right now enables individual personalized education. And it's progressing much faster. With AI, it will get even more personalized, not only for young people, but for adults as well. But here's what matters. This is where we get a lot of ideas, a lot of beliefs, especially this paradigm that is installed very, very deeply in our mind, that there is a correct answer and there's incorrect answer. And for correct answer, we get A grade. And for incorrect answer, we get punished. We extrapolate this paradigm everywhere in life. And this is how people grow to believe that there is a correct way of doing something. And then there is incorrect way of doing something. And if you do something in life correctly, so to speak, you'll get rewarded. But if you don't, you'll get punished. And rarely we question if that is actually the belief that serves us well in life. Layer 3, let's call it the religious cultural framework. That's another institutional layer where this paradigm comes through, is the institution of church or religious thinking. In ancient times, it was actually a good mechanism, a mechanism that controlled chaos. So sleeping with other men's wives, for example, is prohibited because there's going to be a lot of undesired children. Undesired children become the destitute, the criminals, and there's a high concentration of criminals. The whole society falls into chaos. Very simple mechanism of control. And this is why these biblical principles like don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery exist in religious texts. All these principles are actually pretty grounded in truth. If you install them in your life, a lot of good things can be done right. But we're not going to go too deep into religion. All of this I'm sharing with you to give you an example of where this paradigm of right or wrong comes from. There is this notion and concept of God. You do the right stuff, you get rewarded, you go to heaven, and depending on religion, pick your reward. If you don't do right, you're going to hell, you're going to burn, pick your punishment. So we pick up and we install this paradigm that there is right stuff and there is wrong stuff. And we get programmed with it. Polarized view of black and white. But does the life actually operate that way? There is a certain way of living that's considered right. There is a certain way of living that's considered wrong. That's the belief system that we build from religious institutions. And whatever we derive for ourselves becomes our system of beliefs that we then project onto others. We think that our way of living is right and everybody's living wrong. And we suffer when other people don't necessarily share our beliefs or live life the way we do. The duality trap. And I want to talk about how duality manifests itself. So we think in this polarity: zeros and ones, yes or no, black and white, correct, incorrect, wrong, right. And we tend to fall into these bipolar ends of the spectrum, but that's not necessarily how life is. On the contrary, life is that way for us because that's how we believe it. That's the meta principle to understand. Life is not a certain way. Everything that you call life is happening within your mind. Whatever's happening in your mind is your own perception. What you believe, you experience. Your experience will reinforce your beliefs. All beliefs are just thoughts repeated a million times until they are fully integrated into subconsciousness. Because they're so deeply integrated, they sit there very, very deep without even you having a moment of questioning them, but they quietly and silently drive your life. In my sessions, I'll often see someone say, I just feel like I need to be more established before I can change my life. And I stop them. Who said that? Who is talking? This is the mind. This is the program that's running automatically. When they pause, they can see, they can feel that the system is glitching because the conscious mind cannot locate the source. And that's where we start our discovery. Let's talk about that authority phenomenon. Who are these invisible rule makers inside our heads? That phantom authority, the invisible rule maker in the mind, it's the voice. And the voice usually says things like, you can't do that yet. But when you ask, truly ask, who said that? There is no answer. It's not your father, it's not your boss, it's not society. It's a hallucination, composite hallucination built from different fragments of other people's approval. And I've seen clients who were governed by these ghosts for decades. Um, One believed they had to earn certain income before they started exploring creative work. And even though like no one in their life really explicitly told them that, another person wouldn't allow themselves to rest until they achieved some kind of undefined enoughness. I need to be enough in order to give myself permission to rest. When I ask, whose rule is that? They blink and blank out. Because eventually we all get to realize that there is no one. That's the nature of this phantom authority. It has no origin, only continuity. In thought, it persists because it's never been questioned. All these rules are a function of those sets of beliefs, and those beliefs are just automated thinking. They run as programs in the mind because they've never been questioned. The moment you expose it, it collapses. It cannot survive true, sincere investigation. Once someone truly sees that the voice telling them what to do and how to do it doesn't belong to anyone real, there is always the same reaction. There's a mix of sadness and disappointment, and maybe even frustration and anger of leaving and spending so much lifetime and energy on this chatter. And there's tears of joy and relief that, hey, like, I don't need to really live like this anymore. Let's talk about why smart people build smarter prisons. The sophistication of a prison is a function of your own sophistication. That's the paradox. And the more analytical the mind, the more elegant is the rationalization of something can be done or can't be done. So, referring to the same client who's been a strategy consultant who can map out every causal link in the markets, maybe deconstruct the whole business and break it down and build a very sophisticated SWOT analysis, but never really question the internal logic of their own suffering, of why they use the same strategy consultant mindset to life. Can we really take life and break it into mental models and frameworks and optimize them as such? Why do people do that? Because intelligence, when it is not unintegrated, it becomes self reinforcing. People who are smart, they build castles of logic to defend their beliefs. The mind that is analytical uses analysis to stay safe from emotion. But freedom doesn't come from analysis, it comes from awareness. Awareness doesn't need to explain itself. So, the most brilliant people I've coached often have the hardest time of letting go because they've built an identity around being the one who knows everything, who understands everything. But the mind cannot think its way out of itself. You cannot think your way into the state of no thought. You cannot think your way into the silence, into the quiet, still mind. But it can dissolve into direct seeing. And it's the beauty of it that you can use your smartness, you can use your intelligence as you are to deconstruct your own illusions. But that happens only when you stop trusting your intellect and realize that intellectualizing mind is just another form of control. So, an intelligent mind, an intellectual mind can create very sophisticated explanations for absolutely everything. Richard Feynman once said, the most important thing is not to fool yourself. And you are the easiest person to fool. The more intelligent you are, the more sophisticated your mind is a mechanism. And the more sophisticated are the explanations for why something is the way it is and why something isn't. Why you can do something, why you cannot do something. You can explain everything to yourself and convince yourself of absolutely anything. And that's the fallacy of the human mind. We also believe that the smarter we become, the more high functioning we are, that we are the only ones who know how everything works in life. But is that true? That belief itself needs to be challenged. We don't necessarily know and see everything. And as a rule of thumb, as you're going through this investigation, I would probably keep it as a reminder to self. Every thought is a lie. Every belief is untrue. Everything my mind is telling me right now, I can start with a place of doubt. What if everything I know, everything I believe is absolute and total bullshit? What if? Only through that doubt you can truly enter the space of honest and open and sincere investigation and start dissecting the content of your mind and truly try to understand where all this stuff that is sitting there is coming from. Is it supposed to be there? Did you put it there? Does it serve you? Or does it not? Part 2, the deconstruction methodology. So, I conceptualize beliefs as software applications, right? They're running on the hardware of the brain within the operating system of the mind. And like any application, they can be audited, upgraded, deleted, installed. That's the analogy that I make with my clients, right? I'm going to take your phone, but your phone is your mind. I'm going to start looking through all these applications, all this data that you keep in there within the application, right? And I'm going to start poking at them and asking you, why is this application there? What is the purpose that it serves? All applications can be uninstalled and upgraded. And have you asked yourself, uh, what is the purpose of it? Like, each belief as an application is serving a particular purpose, like an app within your phone. Maybe you are using for communication, maybe there is Slack, maybe you're using Microsoft Teams, but maybe you're not even using Microsoft Teams. Maybe you're using mail, maybe not email, maybe you're using pigeon mail. That's how archaic and deeply ingrained these beliefs can be. I'm giving you just this analogies of how deeply inefficient some beliefs can be. And imagine that some applications, some beliefs sitting within the operating system of your mind, they're absolutely not necessary. On the contrary, they create the very inhibition that you're trying to solve. They're the ones that stop you from achieving your full potential. So, what's happening within the coaching session? A cognitive engineering session is like debugging consciousness. This process is surgical, it's not therapeutic, it's not motivational. I'm there to diagnose stuff. And we begin by identifying the friction, where the system is creating unnecessary effort. Where do you feel discomfort? Where do you feel strong emotions? Because all these emotions, all this resistance is coming from a certain way of thinking. This is where NLP becomes useful, neuro-linguistic programming, because we start looking at the linguistic patterns. The hidden code is within the language that you utilize to describe yourself, the concept of self, and describe the world, your reality. You look into language and patterns expose everything. When someone is saying, I have to, or I should, or I need to, I know that you're dealing with programming. There is no have to, or should to, or need to, or only the stuff that you believe in. You can reveal all these unconscious programs through language. So, what are the different ways to look and investigate this invisible mental code? That's number one, observation of speech patterns. That's a micro pattern that I'm observing. For example, people whose mind is racing, their speech is racing. Tangential thinking is tangential communication. And that's the number one thing we need to address. We need to slow down. We cannot control what we don't understand, and we don't understand what we don't observe. So when it comes to mind, we got to observe first. We've got to start listening. What the hell is going on? What the hell is coming out of my mouth? Because these speech patterns are thinking patterns. Whatever we vocalize and verbalize reveals what's actually going on within the mind. Number two, it's me. My job is to be that metacognitive partner or metacognitive mirror. I observe those patterns, and my job is to be the external source of awareness. I feed it back, saying it exactly as is sometimes, but sometimes maybe giving it a different twist or different angle just to show a different perspective. And sometimes that's all that's required. Just repeating words back so that people could hear how it actually sounds. And many times, all the illusions, all the old ineffective beliefs start breaking and falling apart when people say them out loud. And when they say it out loud, they hear it and they understand the absurdity of what they've just said. That's practically one of the essences of coaching. Number three, it's writing. You can do the same work with writing. Writing gets it all out. You create distance literally between your thoughts and yourself. You become aware of your thoughts. And this disassociation process happens because your thoughts take a physical form. You literally get your thoughts out of your system. And when you puke it all, put all your stream of consciousness on the piece of paper, you realize, aha, this is not me. This is just the stuff inside my head. And then you have an opportunity to organize it, reorganize it, delete it, and improve your thinking systems over time. So I'm not only coaching in my work with my clients, but also training people on how to utilize technology to capture their mind in order to investigate it. And that is the purpose of AI. AI is perfect metacognitive mirror. It doesn't have any kind of distortion that humans have. No fear, anxiety, personality, identity, beliefs, limiting blind spots, stuff like that. But you have to know how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, AI in the hands of a user who doesn't know how to apply AI, it serves zero purpose. There must be some foundational knowledge to understand how to apply LLMs. I'll give you an example, and that's could be maybe number 4. So when we have a coaching session, I'll record the coaching session, I'll download the transcript. You can, first of all, you can listen to the recording and you can listen to all the stuff that you're saying. But then you take the transcript, you upload it into LLM and you process it and you start seeing language patterns. And the more you collect and accumulate this content session after session, you start seeing even more patterns using AI, which is a perfect pattern recognition machine. You can investigate all the stuff, all the belief patterns, and investigate their validity. What is underneath those beliefs? What are the meta beliefs? What kind of foundation do they have? Are they actually grounded in truth? And then 5, like coaching piece, and that's actually the job, right? I pressure test it through direct inquiry, through questioning. Who said, whenever you say there is a belief, I ask, who said that it's true? If you didn't believe that, what would change? What's the cost of keeping this rule that you're following alive? Sometimes it's just a simple question of where is this coming from? Just to start digging and investigating the origin of that belief. Or sometimes it can be a little bit direct, asking, why are you so attached to this way of thinking? What would be the alternative way of thinking? And you can tell from people's reaction when the belief is ready to collapse. They pause, they're confused, sometimes they're laughing, sometimes they're silent. This is how you know that awareness is rising. And awareness is seeing or becoming aware of that resistance within the mind. My goal and job is not to convince somebody of new beliefs. It is just to show people and bring their attention back that they always had a direct choice. My job is to show the fallacy of the belief, help them see it, and grow in their awareness of all these mental processes that are happening within the mind. If that process is happening, the system, the operating system of the mind, will self-correct. So when belief systems collapse, it's not really intellectual, it's visceral, it's in the body. Um, it changes the body, it changes how people experience life. Nervous system is recalibrating itself to freedom from that belief. Sometimes it's disorientation, and sometimes it's just you can tell that people are getting purely into this grounded feeling. My job is not to rush to reconfirm, and sometimes I don't do it. My job very often is just to hold silence. Because in that silence, in that void, is that where real integration, or to be more precise, disintegration happens. The mind is realizing that it's not in control. And that's the time when consciousness is relaxing into itself. My job is not to replace the old software, is to help people to see what is it in the old software that's never been serving, that's not working, that's dysfunctional, and can be ultimately replaced. What are the different signals? Like when we have this conversation, how do you know that belief is not substantiated? Number one, um, they cannot explain things in a very logical, cohesive way. And that's what you need to know. If you can't explain it, you don't fully understand it yourself. Number two, you cannot reconcile all the concepts logically. Like you have a lot of different concepts with a lot of different definitions, but your system of definition doesn't work ultimately as one cohesive system. And just not to be too abstract, I'll give you an example. For example, the concept of external reality and internal reality. We use it to describe our human experience. We kind of live in this dual world, and as people, we interface with the external world. There's things that are happening in the external world. There are news that are happening in the external world, friendships, relationships, work, careers, deals, all that stuff. But on the inner side, we also have our kind of inner experience. But if you look into your actual direct experience, there's no such thing as external or internal. Everything that's happening, everything that you know about the world, everything that you call external comes through sensory information, your senses. And then it creates some kind of mental event. So all there is only what you know. And what you know is the reality of your own mind. There are 8 billion people on this planet, and no one knows what the external world looks like. The only thing that you experience in this life is the reality of your own mind. You can't even tell if all these people you know, all these people you have relationships with, they might as well be the products of your imagination. You are the prisoner of your own mind, and you always will be. You are the only one to experience your individual reality, and no one else will ever understand what it's like to be you, just like you will never understand what it's like to be someone else and other people in their path and what they're actually going through. That's not a rocket science. To come to this and to arrive to this point of understanding, all it requires is just a little bit of observation. From there, the next level of thinking is the understanding of, okay, if that's me locked within this black room of my mind with a couple of windows I call eyes from which I'm looking outside in the world, but actually the experience of that world is happening within that room too, then why the hell am I suffering? Why am I suffering in life, and who actually is creating that suffering? What's the reason that stands behind my suffering? And then you start looking within the room, within this castle of your mind, and investigating everything that's in there, investigating the furniture, asking yourself, who put this stuff here in this corner? Why is it here? What's its purpose? Why is it smelling? Why is it rotting? Why there's moss on my walls? If you truly start shining light within the darkness of your mind, and you're not okay with how things are set up there, you start cleaning it up. People say your body is your temple. Well, if your body is your temple, then your mind is your garden. If you're not okay with what's happening in your garden, you start taking care of your garden. Some plants, they require watering. You have to water the right seeds, the productive thoughts and beliefs, and you have to weed out the stuff that's no longer serving you. Not only it's no longer serving you, it's poisoning the well. That's the inner work that everyone must do for themselves. But it can be done faster and effectively with the help of an expert. Want to talk a little bit what's happening in the next level, which is actually the ultimate collapse, the identity dissolution. That's the true collapse. The true collapse is happening, and at the next level. When people realize that the identity they believe themselves to be, the person they believe themselves to be, is full fabrication of the mind. It never existed. Identity or ego or self-concept is just an entanglement of different stories, past memories, thoughts, future thoughts. Identity, ultimately, is a thought. Whatever you poke at, there's nothing really to hold on to. Try to find that thing that you call ego or that you call identity. All you find is always just a phantom of a thought. And these stories and thoughts and perceptions and conceptions and beliefs, hopes, dreams, fears, that's all there is. That's all that ego is. When someone starts seeing that ego is completely unreal, and whatever they believe themselves to be is completely unreal, it never existed, it was just a dream, that's what people call so-called awakening. Awakening is simply starting to see the unreality of thought. And because self is made of thought, you start seeing the unreality of self. After that collapse, the reconstruction begins. But not as new beliefs, automated thinking, but as conscious design. Here's a question. If you were to design your mind from scratch, knowing that you know now, what would you keep and what would you delete? Can you be the true author of the mind? Can you be the architect of your reality? Be conscious, not reactive. And don't get me wrong, like we still need egos. It's not gonna, even after the collapse and the so-called awakening experience, the ego won't disappear. And it won't disappear for a long time or maybe forever. There's going to be inertia. There's going to be momentum. The mind is very tenacious. And, but your relationship is changing because you still use ego. Now you use ego as a tool. Right now, I'm using my ego to communicate with the world, to communicate with you, really. Ego becomes an interface. It's a tool, a costume, or a suit, something that you use in order to interact with the dual physical world and communicate with other people. Because that's the only form of communication we have. We cannot read each other's minds. The only way for me to let you know, let you into the content of my mind is through communication. So I want to talk about the first principles. First principle thinking, but when it's applied to this realm of metacognition, in the realm of mind or spiritual realm, if you want to call it, we also can break down things to first principles. In math, first principles are zeros and ones and basic operators of math: division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. In life, in reality, those first principles are your direct experience of life. Understanding and seeing the stuff that's been staring you in the face all your life that are absolutely obvious. The moment you realize them, you will cry and laugh at the same time. Right? As I mentioned, people cry because there are tears of regret, how many years I've wasted in the dream. And then there are tears of relief because there is a realization that it's no longer required to live within the dream of self, the dream of ego, the dream of thinking. You can actually be free. You can be awakened and unbound by the noise of the mind. From there, you can start the work of reconstructing the mind from first principles, grounding yourself in truth. And truth is truth. That's why it's called truth. It's only one. It's ultimate for everybody, for absolutely everyone. If you have your own truth and I have my own truth, this is not truth. This is just opinion. Same goes for religious directions. If the Bible says one truth, Quran says another truth, and Torah says another truth, these are not truths. And to be fair, all religions, they're not truths, ultimately. They're just guideposts, signposts on the road. They point to the same truth, but they're not the truths themselves. Because if there were truth and people were actually growing in truth through religion, there wouldn't be any conflict, there wouldn't be wars. There would be only love and understanding and kindness and ultimate compassion. But we've been killing each other for the name of so-called God and so-called truth since the beginning of times. The ultimate truth is universal. It's primal. Everyone's coming from one place and everyone can agree on that. That is final truth. If we agree on that, we can talk. Because this will be one of our first principles. And that is the final truth, is that once you remove that veil of thinking, the veil of identity, the veil of beliefs, the veil of concepts, notions, conceptions, perceptions, sensations, we are all one consciousness. We are all one, always connected, always united. From there, we can rebuild. What do we know directly without making assumptions? All these beliefs that we are integrating, how are they actually working within our life's architecture? All these beliefs that we have, do they expand our freedom or do they contract it? It's not about creating some kind of affirmations and reading them blindly like mantras. It's about engineering your operating system. You can rebuild your ego and identity. But honestly, it's not an active process. You don't even need to do it intentionally. It's just happening by itself. It's a natural and organic process because as falsehood, the false stuff within the ego dies, the truth starts shining through you. When you truly ask yourself this question, who am I really? When people ask me a question like, who am I? There's a shortcut for you. You are what remains when everything that you are not dies away. You are what remains when everything you are not dies away. And that's why I call the process of integration, becoming one, actually the process of disintegration. It's the process of unbecoming what you've believed yourself to be. Your name, your body, your emotions, your thoughts, your profession, your accomplishments, your attainments, your childhood traumas, your beliefs about them, thoughts, hopes, dreams, expectations, whatever it is inside your head, whatever you believe is true for you, when that stuff dies away, the truth shines through. It's not a true self. There's no such thing as true self. The self itself is false. Once the false self dies away, the ultimate truth will shine through your being. Your natural, innate being is that truth. Love, peace, and stillness. And then slowly, as this integration happens, the liberation process is happening because that's practically the process of reconstruction. Um, when do we suffer? We suffer when we are tormented by our desires. Our desires are created by importance. Those desires create expectations. But whose desires are these? Is it really what we want? Or how many of these desires are actually true desires? How many are imposed? Maybe we are conditioned to want stuff that we want. And as desires create certain expectations, we understand that they're nothing but illusion. Expectation is just a movie of how the future supposedly must unfold for you. And when the reality unfolds not in that way, you resist and you struggle and you suffer. Now imagine for a second that all of that stuff is gone. Whatever you call your past, that identity that's been constructed in the past from these past stories, all those experiences, which are not actually the experiences, but the interpretations of those experiences. Stories in the present moment. Everything who wronged you, everything you feel resentment about, everyone you didn't forgive, everyone who's supposedly the reason the way you are. What if all that stuff is gone? What if all you are is just infinite, boundless emptiness? What if you can be this effortless being? I'm not saying the mind will go away. The mind will be utilized as the way it's supposed to. When you want to think, you think. When you don't want to think, you put the mind down. It's a tool. You can still use the mind to build projections, build plans, but you're no longer attached to them. Expectation is controlling you. Projection and plan is something that you control. But honestly, there's no you that's actually doing the control. Because there's no you who is attached to this stuff. That's why there are no longer expectations. And when there are no expectations, there is no suffering, there is no resistance, there's no anger, there's no frustration, there's no trying to fix people, to make them certain way because they're supposed to be a certain way. Once you understand the true nature of your own mind, you'll understand the nature of absolutely every mind. There will be nothing but compassion towards other humans because you will see the depths of their ignorance, just like the way you were ignorant yourself before. And there is no responsibility. There is nothing to ask from people who are asleep. It's like being mad at a dog that you left home alone and the dog destroyed everything in your home. There's no point of being angry at the dog because this is its being. And that behavior is a function of that level of consciousness of the dog. And it's just not self-aware. That's how most people are operating. They are not self-aware. They are not aware of the self. There's no awareness of the self because they live as the self. They live as that ego, that identity, that concept, which is nothing but the entanglement of thoughts. I'm going to pause here and conclude the part one of this podcast. And we explore today the mechanics of mental imprisonment, how beliefs get installed, the voices in your head that serve as those kind of phantom authorities that govern our lives, the invisible rules that they create that we follow. We talked about why intelligent people create intelligent prisons, and your own sophistication is actually the reason why your mental traps are so sophisticated. We talked a little bit about cognitive engineering in action, and we'll continue next. And maybe I'll share with you like what's actually happening within the coaching session, so that you can take a look at what systematic belief demolition, destruction looks like in real life. And yeah, thank you for today. And we'll continue the next part where I will want to walk you through um, how to be the cognitive engineer, the conscious architect, how to create your own mental mind operating system, building it from first principles, and creating your own life philosophy, your own framework for conscious living, whatever it may be. Hope this helps you. I'll see you in the next one.